Hey everyone, I'm Andy Wike,
I'm Steve Mawby.
and today we're going to be taking a little side quest into the world of Canadian pipe shapes. Not specifically pipe shapes that are made from the country of Canada, but
Although also good.
also good, but really as a classification of how a lot of us think about this particular family of shapes.
So the first pipe in the Canadian family, appropriately enough, is the Canadian. So all of these are basically variations on the billiard shape,
Right.
just with different proportions. Billiard, of course, very famously has the same height bowl as it has length of the shank. There's just a lot of very intricate detail that goes into something as simple as categorizing something as a billiard.
Yeah,
So
it's a very canonical shape, like
Yes.
in the pipe charts and whatnot, and it's been a shape that's been around for as long as we've been making pipes out of briar.
Yeah.
Probably earlier than that actually.
Yeah, I mean, arguably even the canonical shape. When you think of classic shapes, it's about as classic as it gets. And then basically, you've got some variations on that theme. And the first one here that we're talking about is the Canadian, where basically you extend the length of that shank and make the shank into an oval shape instead of a round shape, which you can see here, kind of the flattened look in the profile. So if you've got that extended shank with the oval shape and then flowing into a tapered stem, that is what you have known as a Canadian pipe.
That's right. Yeah. Now, I mean, if you're on the forums or you've been following the sort of nerdier side of pipe collecting for a while, there's a lot of like rules to that. At one point, it was only a Canadian if it was like twice the like length of the bowl height, but in the shank, and then it had to have like a very specific length of stem as well.
Yeah.
I think for us, we're really just looking for a more elongated shank with a very specific type of stem paired to that shank.
And one thing, like you said, there were very specific rules at a point. One thing about pipe makers and about pipe making as a craft more generally is that it kind of evolves.
Yeah,
And people
100%.
want to play around with those proportions a little bit and kind of do some variations on that like basic theme.
Yeah, I mean, the rise of artisanal pipe making, I think, definitely just sort of turned those rules on its head. But as a shape class, all four of these still exist. And I sort of classify them based on the Canadian as the family name, because I sort of see all of these as variations on that. I think the Canadian's probably, the Canadian or the Lovat, probably the shapes that you're going to find most common in the wild that are among this family.
I would definitely say so.
I love Canadians. I'm smoking one right now, actually.
Yep, fittingly.
But next up on your list there, Steve, we've got the Lumberman.
Yes. Which also, much like the Canadian, has, the extended shank and also the oval shape. So you kind of see that flattened profile there again. But then we've got the saddle stem here, where you've got that little bit of a, the flat beginning to it, and then the steep drop into the remainder of the stem to actual, the mouthpiece. Just another variation on that theme. Really good example here of how you can take something so classic and so seemingly simple, like a billiard, although any pipe maker will tell you that it's nowhere near as simple.
It's not
as a
simple,
book.
exactly.
But you can just take something that classic and that simple and just kind of play with a few proportions, play with a few of the design elements, and come up with something that really has a very different look and feel to it with the aesthetics of it, even though if you were describing this, it's almost identical, just like with a couple of slight little tweaks. But you're getting a really different profile, different aesthetic to the way it looks, but still just very classic, very, very simple. A lot of really cool things that you can do with those shapes.
Yeah. And I particularly like those two because they are so, like, particularly in profile, they're so slender. Like they're very streamlined.
Yeah.
And it's just a cool aesthetic, I think. Particularly with the Canadian having the tapered bit, it's just like this very elegant.
Yeah. I think elegant is the perfect word for that. I mean,
Whereas Lumberman, I think like the saddle stem does have a little bit like, because of that step down, it's a bit jauntier.
Yeah.
I think. So, all right. Well, moving on to probably, aside from the Canadian, one of the more popular Canadian family shapes here is the Lovat.
My personal favorite
Yeah.
shape outside of the bulldog, but definitely my favorite, in the Canadian family. Basically, you've got, again, the basic billiard profile with, the slight elongation there. But we've got now the more traditional round shank.
Right.
And so you have that round shank, and then much like the Lumberman, you've got the tapered stem, or I'm sorry, the saddle stem. So the same thing, you're seeing the same bit of the profile there with the way that stem kind of drops down and has kind of two stages to it. And then other than that, it's still just that same, basic variation on that same theme.
Yeah, and I think the Lovat is probably the one that I've seen the most people play with those proportions.
Yes.
So like on this Peterson one, for example, it's a bit more short throw than a Canadian would be, right? I mean,
Yes.
like, it's hard to find like a short Canadian. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
But the Lovats work really well in sort of more compact proportions.
Yeah.
But this Peterson one that we have here, like, still has a bit longer of a shank than you would typically expect. And the stem's a little bit longer as well. So it's more of a balanced look, but I would still classify it as a Lovat. And it's really interesting, actually, because like when I'm going for Lovats, I tend to go for something more compact like that.
Yeah,
But
same.
like, I like Chuck Stanion, his favorite shape of all time is the Lovat.
Yeah.
But he would never go for a short throw.
He likes the longer
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like, no, it has to be like this long and has a bowl this tall. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's just really cool to see, like, even among like fellow collectors, like how like you can be like, oh, I collect Lovats.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, well,
But
I
what does that
collect
mean?
Costello Lovats, and those look super different from Dunhill Lovats, and just how that sort of evolves.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like with the billiard, you can speak about, the classic English and French billiards, and then of course there's the Danish take on the billiard, and,
Right.
The Italian school, where they're all still billiards, they're all still basically following the same rules, or at least the same, design cues, but you're getting very different pipes.
Yeah.
Simple variations, but, consistent with the theme. Different pipe makes a very different profile. And
Yeah.
you can have a lot of different varieties in there, which I think something that makes this family so versatile while still being classic, elegant, all those wonderful things that we like about pipes, but still being unique.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can sort of find one that like fits your own unique taste, whether you like tapered bits or saddle bits, or you like short pipes or long pipes. It's very versatile. Speaking of which, the last pipe that we have on here is actually a meerschaum pipe. But it's in one of probably the like lesser known of these Canadian family shapes, and that's the Liverpool. So the Liverpool is very similar to the Lovat, but it's often in larger proportions, I think. And instead of having a saddle stem, it has a tapered stem.
Yeah.
So it's also very versatile. I don't have a ton of Liverpools in my collection, but I think it's a really cool shape, and I've seen a lot of variations on it. Like this one, for example, is rendered in meerschaum, but it also has like more of a stack-like bowl.
Yeah, it's definitely,
which is cool.
You can see it sitting here clearly, larger bowl than any of the others, both proportionally and just, in real size compared to the others. And it's interesting, you've got the round shank just like with the Lovat, and then you've got the tapered stem just like with the Lumberman. It's kind of like
Canadian,
yeah. Not to confuse anyone.
Yeah, right.
It's like you're mixing and matching like various design elements and coming up with all new
And
shapes.
really just between those two things, right?
Yeah.
The treatment of the shank and the treatment of the stem, and you get four permutations of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really cool. But yeah.
Yeah, and this one, we're talking about that larger bowl. These are kind of the the basic templates for the Canadian family, which can be said to be basically varieties of billiards or
Exactly.
variations of the billiard. So there's also other variations of the billiard, such as like the chimney or the stack, where those proportions with the bowl are kind of stretched out even more, and it's it breaks the rules by being a little bit taller than a strict billiard is supposed to be, but it's still even more variety. There's just more elements that you can always play with.
Yeah, I mean, tweaking one thing can just create an endless sea of possibilities
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. I mean, I'm smoking my Adam Davidson Lorraine here, which is just it's another variation, just a basic billiard, but you always has the accent and the little flare there on the stem. just, take something that's very classic and put a little twist on it, make it your own, make it something that's very unique and super cool.
Yeah. And for those of you guys who are wondering, I'm smoking a really nice Canadian by Emiliano. I love this pipe.
Very nice pipe.
But yeah, so we just wanted to kind of cover these 4 shapes. I hope that it gives you guys at home just something to latch onto as you're searching for, oh, I like this. I really love this pipe in my collection. Not really sure what it's called, but I want to find another like it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really helpful for me when I was first getting into this. So take a look at your collection, try to find some of these shapes in your own rotation.
Yeah.
So if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and let us know if you'd like us to sort of explore any more of these sort of pipe series and shape classifications. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.